All right, all this talk of trade being used, all this talk of everyone sitting down for a nice dinner, there are some serious questions that come to mind. Did Donald Trump mediate amidst Sindoor? Well, top government sources are saying that US President Trump never spoke to Prime Minister Modi. Also, it is VP Vance who dialed the Prime Minister on the 9th of May. Vance warned of escalation by Pakistan, and there were absolutely no discussions that have been held over trade. Let's quickly take a look at what this really means in terms of takeaways. The Prime Minister and Trump never had a phone conversation. Only US President Vance spoke to PM Modi. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, and there's no question of trade figuring anywhere in those conversations. Lastly, the US claims that the nuclear war was averted, but nuclear weapons were not mobilized at all, is what government sources have told Times Now. Let me quickly take this across to our panelists with us. Kanwal Sibal, how do you analyze this? Because, you know, you have a public position that has been taken. In fact, all right, I don't think we have Mr. Sibal with us. All right, Mr. Sibal, with the statements that have been made by Donald Trump, government sources saying that there's no question about either trade figuring at a time like this or even, you know, Trump playing any role. It is Marco Rubio, it is J.D. Vance that by all sources and all the information coming in who actually engaged with the leadership here in India and in Pakistan.
Actually, these details are not very important because if Rubio and Vance spoke to Prime Minister or to the External Affairs Minister, this was obviously in consultation with Trump. But Trump likes to take credit for everything and he speaks loosely. He doesn't measure his words. He doesn't reflect on the impact his loose talk will have on diplomatic relations with important countries. Now, he's loosely talking about some kind of a trade, if not an embargo, some kind of trade restrictions on India and Pakistan if they didn't agree to a ceasefire. It's childish. Look at U.S. trade with Pakistan. It's only $7.2 billion. With India, it's $200 billion. So what stake does the United States have in Pakistan? And then he says that, you know, now that they've agreed to a ceasefire, he'll reward them with more trade. So what are they going to trade with Pakistan? This is just childish, frankly childish talk. With regard to this business about mediation and everything else, brokering the peace, announcing it even before India and Pakistan were able to announce it, actually this diminishes India diplomatically and politically. He's creating a moral equivalence, political equivalence, military equivalence between India and Pakistan. And then he goes on to talk about mediation on the Kashmir issue. Who's asked him to mediate? He's not at all cognizant of or sensitive to India's long-standing position that in India-Pakistan issues, there is no scope for any third-party role. This is enshrined in the Simla Agreement. Now, by doing this, actually, he's creating an international atmosphere where other countries will jump into the fray because he's giving them some kind of a lead.
I
think we have to push back a little bit, of course, carefully and pragmatically, because very often Trump says things, but he doesn't follow through.
Absolutely. So the bluster is something that he's known for.
You're going to take him.
Absolutely, sir. The bluster is something that he's very well known for. But Veena Sikri, you know, the kind of statements that we've been seeing, you know, whether he says it's a 1,000-year-old war and he's factually incorrect about that before any of this happens is a different situation. But at the time of, you know, when there is a de-escalation happening, you know, statements like these can very easily be misconstrued. And of course, diplomacy is about communicating, ensuring that no side, you know, feels that they have been, you know, incorrectly represented. Even stuff like we stopped a nuclear conflict. Where was the question of a nuclear conflict? Neither side, in fact, had their nuclear weapons at play here.
Yeah, you know, actually, President Trump is coming in with, right from the time of his inauguration, where he had promised his supporters that he was going to end the Ukraine-Russia war in 5 days and the Israel-Hamas in another 2 weeks. He could do neither of those things. And now he thinks that he's going to take the credit for the de-escalation of the India-Pakistan conflict. And that way, you know, and Pakistan is actually tweeting that, you know, President Trump, you can get the Nobel Peace Prize if you solve the situation between India and Pakistan. But I think our Prime Minister has been very firm, and our Prime Minister's address to the nation day before yesterday, and his speech at Adhampur base in Punjab made it very clear that it is India which is in control. We have no talks at all on anything with Pakistan except terror and on the return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So there is no question of Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir, because after August 5, 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, there is no international talk at all on Jammu and Kashmir anymore. It's just about the return of POJK, and that's what it is. So I think our Prime Minister's position has laid the grounds very clearly for India not moving an inch from its position. And I think you're seeing the Americans now slightly backing off from their claims, although he said it today when he's in Saudi Arabia and speaking to the people there. But it doesn't matter. We just sort of listen to that as it goes along. But you do not see anybody in the American administration talk about it. And I want to point to one more fact, that so far, a lot of the deep state in America had remained unchanged. And despite President Trump wanting to get rid of it, it was those same people from the Biden administration acting up right up till now. As of today, or maybe yesterday, Tulsi Gabbard is making the first changes in the National Intelligence Council and taking away all the people. She has, they've all lost their jobs. The people who were there, the number one, the number two, and so on, from the Biden administration days. I think you're going to see a big change. So far, I've seen that both in Pakistan and in Bangladesh, it is the Biden administration deep state continuing to act. And this has been very disconcerting, because you're seeing, all of us were expecting a big change, but really, in a sense, this change had not so far taken place. I just hope that today, with the changes with Tulsi Gabbard as head of as director of national intelligence has instituted in the deep state in America, I hope we will gradually see a change in what is happening in this kind of.
Absolutely. I want Abhijit to come in on this, because Abhijit, is very interesting. At a time of war and crisis is when, people and countries, perhaps in this case, show their true character. In the case of the United States, things were all hunky-dory, and then this sort of situation happens where they virtually brought India and Pakistan on the same level, judging by the kind of statements coming in. And, the larger question is this, that at a time such as this, US might have been in a hurry to put out the statement before China, and there may be several such aspects of this, but in the end of the day, it is India that they have risked embarrassing on the international platform, and that too at such a sensitive time.
So, let's look at this from a slightly different perspective. It's not that I disagree with Ambassador Sikri or Ambassador Sibbal, but notice what is happening out here. Even in the midst of all this rehyphenation and things like that, even if it lasts, this won't last. When he came, when he was sworn in, he was 100% with Israel. Now he's taking pot shots at Israel and things like that. All it really required was the Qataris to give him that used 747 that the Qatar Amiri flight uses to bring about this change of attitude in Qatar, in the US, in Trump. But let me put it this way. Notice nobody, not Trump, not in the rehyphenation, not Pakistan, are talking about the Indus Water Treaty suspension. It seems like the IWT has been completely taken off the table for good. And if, it is the nuclear weapons keeping Pakistan safe, it is the Indus Water Treaty keeping Pakistan alive. So, this is the case of you will continue to pay your chowkidar outside to keep you safe while there is no food to eat at home.
Okay.
I see this as a strategic victory already, even in what we may see as a failure. I'm normally the pessimist, but I see the optimistic side out here.